Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are gonna overdye a yarn mop. What is a yarn mop? A yarn mop is a skein of yarn that I use during a dyeing project to soak up leftover dye. Whether that is to add it to a dye bath to remove a little bit of residual color or help soak up some of that color, mop it up, if you will. Sometimes it's to clean the countertop and wipe up excess dye powder or liquid dye that might be left there. And other times, if I'm doing speckles or something, I might have dye on my gloves. And I use these mops to collect that excess dye off of my gloves, creating a pretty and random colorway. Now, in this particular instance, I filmed a video where I was using acid dyes mixed with citric acid with stencils on a sock blank. And there really wasn't that much extra dye left over. This yarn is fine as like a subtle neutral, but we can pump up the volume and use more leftover dyes mixed with citric acid. Maybe we will bring in some old dye stocks to overdye it. But I think I might mostly go for some speckles and at least that dye mixed with citric acid and see where we end up. I'm planning on overdyeing this in a Patreon behind the scenes live stream that's gonna take place in the morning. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pre-soak this in some plain tap water overnight. Depending on what we're gonna do onto this yarn, then I might add acid in here eventually, or maybe not. We will see. But I did also add on a removable nylon zip tie. I like to do this because it makes it easier to make sure I don't tangle the yarn. It gives a good point for untangling. Typically with Stroll, I could do a pre-soak or just a dip like this for even a couple of minutes. An overnight pre-soak is not 100% necessary, but it's sort of what I'm in the mood for tomorrow because the behind the scenes stream is going to happen fairly early in the morning. So I'll be back tomorrow and we'll dye this yarn. For our dyes today, we're going to use up a lot of dyes I have pre-mixed with citric acid. Here we have a pink, maybe it was Valentine blush. We have some True Black. We have some Sea Spray. It's the newer Sea Spray. We have some Brilliant Yellow. And then I have what I think might be Tangelo or Golden Yellow or Golden Honey Mustard or something like that. This one might be Tangelo and it's definitely dried out. It has some chunks. So in this glass jar, if I shake it, that kind of is breaking up those clumps. I have a lot of this dye and I think it's gonna dominate our color. Now I also have, which I think might be a tiny bit of some Caribbean blue that I also would like to use up. And so I'm gonna see how much of all of these colors I can add onto our yarn. And if we don't like the way all the colors come together, then I'll go and look and see what other dyes I have to sort of overlay them. Because when you're playing with like a lot of speckles, there is going to be a lot of negative space in the yarn. And so if the colors feel very clashy or it feels like it doesn't harmonize in any kind of way, then you can always overdye it in some kind of bright or deep color, and that will sort of reduce the contrast between some of those colors a bit. But we will see. So I'm gonna go grab our yarn and we'll set up the counter. I never added acid to this pre-soak and I think it'll be okay because we have citric acid in with our dyes. And now as I'm adding water and I'm gonna squeeze this out, oh, I guess I wanna keep some water in with it, so I don't wanna squeeze it like all the water out. So I'm actually gonna re-dip the yarn into here. And then this time when I squeeze out, I want to squeeze the water that's going to run off, but I can feel in it that there is water like held within these fibers that I could squeeze out more. And we're going to be working directly off of the counter today. And I am going to take the yarn and try to spread it out a little bit. Now the downside of having our yarn more saturated is that it is a little bit harder to spread things out. The upside is that as I add the citric acid powders onto our yarn, some of those colors will soak in a tiny bit faster. But I can always remove more water as we go on. We're not sort of stuck in this situation. But anyway, I am gonna go put on my deluxe rubber respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves, and we're gonna start adding dye on. Okay, let's start by just testing what some of these colors are. This definitely looks like a Tangelo to me, and it's gonna absolutely be the dominant color that we have. I'm hoping, oh, this is a pink. Oh, that's great, because we have another pink, or maybe it's a lavender. Okay, and then, what are you? I'm hoping for black, I think. If it's black, that would be great. If it's blue, I'm a little more nervous. I'm tapping it in. I think it's black. Phew! So I think then everything we have will have a good, I guess, contrast, a good relationship with each other. Now, I don't have a yarn mop or anything for this yarn mop. We're just kind of gonna go for it. And so this Tangelo, we're gonna start mostly here. And because this color, there's so much of it, I'm going all over right away. And I'm going to be adding little bits of some of these other colors on top. Because, oh, that was a lot of pink, but see, I just dumped it. And we're going for it. We are just totally going for it. Oh, I forgot. We have these little inserts in these tiny little jars. Add some bits of yellow. I have a feeling I will be getting more and more loosey-goosey as time goes on. But I'm excited. And we do have a little bit of some blue. But I think that that's going to work. I don't know which one's the blue, though, and which one's the black. This one might be the black. We do have a little bit of some blue, but there was already some blue in here, so I think that that'll be okay. Oh, this is a mess. Now, that Tangelo is spreading a lot and is not going to give us super sharp speckles. We may end up with a little bit of a mess, but I think I'm okay with that. I think moving forward, I may want to wait. Oh, that was a lot. I may want to wait before flipping just to give these dyes a little bit of time to sink in. I have used most of this Tangelo up now, though, which is great. I should save a little bit of this pink. I wonder if this is the lavender. And I have no idea where it's going. Some of these little shakers have thicker citric acid in there than some other of the colors. But there, this darker one I can see more. But yeah, we will also be wiping the counter, and we'll just have to see. So funny when I can't tell which color is which until it sinks in a little bit more, but that is okay. And some of this yellow, which I used a lot on the DNA. Yellow speckles are so hard to read. Okay, we've made a little bit of a mess. I'm okay with this. I am going to let this sit, I think, for 5 minutes this time, just to let things sink in a little bit. And during that time, I'm going to go set up a steamer basket. As we're waiting, this is super cool looking, but there's definitely sections that have more color, sections that have less color. I have a feeling we're going to squeeze and wipe with it very, very soon. And I have used up a lot of the dye that I have so far, but we still have a lot more we need to. If it seems like the yarn isn't able to soak up all the color that we want, Then after we add some more dye, we're going to pop it in the steamer basket for 5 or 10 minutes before bringing it back, just to help the yarn absorb more color. All right, it has been 5 minutes. I see some of those blues sinking in, and we have so much color down here. I am going to wipe this up as much as I can. And then I was debating with myself what I want to do, and I do think, okay, this is soaking up the color, and because I was debating popping this in a steamer basket briefly. And the way we know it's soaking up the color is, yes, we see some color streaking, but look at the color on the counter. Almost all of the color is in fact in our yarn versus coming out and seeing pools of color on the counter. And so that means that we have enough acid in here for things to absorb, and it means that I can try to open this up. I'm really enjoying this yarn. It would be hard to do something like this on purpose, because I think if I were to plan it, I wouldn't love how it would go, but I'm really enjoying how this is going right now. Okay, I am going to go for our yellow first. With this little shaker, I can really try to place the color, but these clumps are so big. There was another video, I think, that I used these dyes for, dyeing a variegated and speckled yarn, and this large citric acid is just so clumpy. I forget if I ordered, okay, we are about done with the yellow. Will I be able to peel this thing off? No, I might need to do that in the sink. What was I going to say? Sorry everyone, my brain has left the building momentarily. Okay. See, this one still has some of the smaller end, and it shakes out a lot easier. I think that the food grade citric acid I got was smaller than the ones I got from Dharma. And so I think I might not, I don't know if I'll do a side-by-side comparison, or if that's a video that you guys want, because I can say right now that, like, side-by-side with the shaker, the smaller the citric acid powder is, you could get finer speckles. The larger it is, you can spread colors out better. And so that is just a little bit of a toss-up. Now, since we have so much other pink, I don't know if this is the, like, lavender, if it's a pink. I mean, I guess I may go a little bit all over. Just trying to use it up. Okay, we have a little bit left in there. I honestly, for the life of me, can't tell which color is the black and which is the blue. Which maybe is a good thing. I don't know. Oh, goody. That one is tapped. Let's go for, whoa, the pink. See, watch that pour out. Watch that pour out all over. With the exception of some clumps. And you know what? As much as I try to leave no dye behind, sometimes there's dye that gets left behind. We're going to move this again. Trying to expose areas that have less color on them already. And we might be about tapped with that Tangelo as well. Oh, great. Now I do have, oh, I hear my steamer basket getting nice and happy. I do have this black. And I'm really enjoying the way these colors come together. And this is the thing, again, with a mystery, and I know I probably just, like, completely lost a tangent. But the nice thing about a mystery color, when you don't know what you're going to get, is that you end up playing with colors in a way that otherwise I might not plan. Like a bunch of oranges and pinks, like reddish oranges and pinks, are colors I would put together on my own, but I wouldn't necessarily add like a black or a blue to it because I wouldn't really know how that might turn out. And so this is just fun. Now, as I'm adding this color, trying to get this last little bit of dye out, I'm once again gonna let things sit for about 5 minutes. And then I will wipe the counter and start steaming. I tend to like saturated things more than less saturated things, so this new version of the yarn is really up my alley. Now, did I have to do this as a technique to over dye what I had before? No. I wanted to keep in with sort of like the theme, and certainly not this saturated, but this kind of thing is a little bit more what I expected from that DNA stenciling video. But anyway, I am now going to take this over to my steamer basket, pop that in, and then I'm going to clean off this counter to make sure that I have all of the dye powder washed off. But you can see there isn't that much color left, but I will bring over water and do a good rinse of this counter. And we'll steam set our yarn in my little steamer basket for 30 minutes. This is a multi-pot that has a pasta insert in the steamer basket, and I use it all the time. This exact brand hasn't existed for a while, but if you want something similar, this is an 8-quart multi-pot. And so that's the type of thing to search for. But anyway, I'll be back in 30 minutes. And oh, of course, all of the tools and equipment I use for dyeing yarn, especially when I'm using commercial acid dyes, are dedicated for dyeing yarn and are never used for preparation for food. So this pot is one that I bought just for filming Dyepot weekly videos, and I've never used it for any kind of cooking, just yarn. It has been 30 minutes and I'm anticipating that all of our dye is in our yarn. So I'm going to set the yarn aside to cool completely so we can wash it and save the steamer basket for another project. Let's wash our yarn. I think that this is very beautiful. I love the parts that almost feel burgundy. And we've got some hints of yellow, maybe some hints of blue. It is a very busy yarn, but it is also quite beautiful. But what would you do at this point if you weren't a fan of it? If you got to here, you had all this color, and you wish that maybe there was less contrast, or you wish that maybe there's too many colors and they were too busy. I mean, these all work here, but if you didn't like it, then you could go ahead and do a number of different immersion techniques. And with this one, if you didn't like the orange, I would take a red and maybe overdye it with a red, or say a Cabernet, sort of a deep color. You can always overdye with black and go for a black yarn that has some very subtle shifts under it. But I'm trying to suggest some things that aren't black because black is expected. And so if you were going to overdye this with red or even orange, you would still have that variation there, but the contrast between the white and the color that was left would be reduced. But I am pleased to say we are not seeing any bleeding. And so I'm going to, well, finish rinsing out the soap. Then I'm going to put the yarn through my spin dryer and hang it up to dry so we can take a closer look at it. But see, we do still have some speckles, and there's mottling in with that orange. It just looks like we have some bigger splotches of color. It's so pretty. Our finished dry yarn looks so different from how it appeared at the beginning of this video, where it just had a little hint of color on it. Now don't get me wrong, yarn with a little hint of color can be great as a neutral. It has slightly more variation than just a plain bare yarn. But I wanted something a little more, and so I'm really glad we overdyed this and used up a lot of the citric acid speckles that I had in my collection. Of course, in the less than a week since I filmed this video, I now have new and a lot more citric acid speckles, but I will be using those in future videos. We don't need to bring this back to add more color. I love how we have almost like a cherry red, but then we also have like Tangelo, a more like reddish orange in here. There definitely are other colors as well, but those are the dominant notes with some black accents. And I think that we may have had like a blue in here as well. I do see a handful of some yellow notes, but most of those other colors, aha, I found some blue. Here we go, we've got some blue and yellow in there. But most of what you see is like this orange, red, black, and white. Now it's time for you to let me know, do you like the yarn better now? Or did you like it better before? Would you have done something different? I could have over dyed the yarn with just a tonal color. I could have kettle dyed it. But those little tiny pops of color would have still shown up as speckles potentially on the yarn, and maybe it still wouldn't feel quite balanced. So doing a very busy colorway like we did right here, I think is mega helpful. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. I know that this is, well, I haven't edited it, but I think it's a short project. But I do a variety of free-flowing, dyeing by feel, and then more measured, planned, longer projects as well. And we have a lot of fun. So please subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you so much for watching.